Tony? Good?
Is Dr. Mike in?
Don't see him. Hold
This
on.
is the first time I've been in a meeting with you in person.
Yes, he's here.
I just, you know what's interesting is I
I
can't
mean, like
see.
this meeting.
Yeah, I didn't pin him. Yes, I didn't pin him.
Okay.
Okay, he's here. I would like to welcome everyone watching on ITV and via live stream and call the March 22nd, 2022 regular meeting to order with all board members present. Board Member Patterson, will you lead the pledge, please? Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Put your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. I would like a motion to adopt today's agenda.
So moved.
That's by Trustee Beiser, and the second is by
I'll second.
Patterson, Trustee Patterson.
Aye.
For once, yes, you get to vote first. Trustee Patterson?
Aye.
Aye, okay. And now we'll have all of us to vote using it. And we have Trustee Dr. McCrary.
First time.
Aye.
Aye, okay, very good. Thank you. It's wonderful being back again.
How do you get rid of
That means that we have 5-0, and the student is concurring with us. Now, to move on to our list of public speakers.
Today's meeting of the Board of Education is a business meeting that is conducted in public. To reduce the chance of coronavirus exposure, the Board of Education is accepting public testimony via Zoom webinar for the March 22, 2022 meeting. Board Bylaw 1025 sets the time limit for public comment on agenda items at 10 minutes per side, pro and con, or 20 minutes total. Speakers will be able to provide testimony at the beginning of the appropriate agenda item or at the end of the meeting for non-agenda comment. The list of public speakers is attached to agenda item B2. Please listen for your name to be called. Speakers are listed and called in the order received. When your name is called, you will be allowed to speak. Please unmute yourself at that time. If you hear your name called and are unable to unmute yourself, we will call the next speaker. Once all speakers have been called for the item, your name will be called again. Please unmute yourself. Zoom does not allow staff to access your personal device to unmute a speaker. Please follow along with the agenda so that you know when your item is coming up for discussion.
Thank you. On behalf of the Board of Education, we'd like to move to the next item because we do not have student presentation tonight. So on behalf of the Board of Education, we're taking this opportunity to recognize the Superintendent Search Advisory Committee for their efforts over the past year. In February of 2021, a little over a year ago, the board created an advisory committee comprised of 46 community and educational partners to facilitate the selection process for the next permanent San Diego Unified School District Superintendent. Chris Rice Wilson, who is on the call with us tonight, served as chairperson, and Claire Crawford as secretary. Dr. Julie Martell served as coordinator from May through September of 2021. The Superintendent Search Advisory Committee advised the board throughout the selection process and I mean weekly, and was instrumental in the development of a request for proposal, or RFP, to hire an outside consultant to conduct educational partner engagement in May and June of 2021. Also, participation in multiple community outreach opportunities from July to September, and then review of the consultant's report on community feedback in October of 2021, development of the superintendent job posting in October, review of the application packages in November, recommendation of up to 10 finalists in December of 2021, development of a community forum model during December, and then in January of 2022, and finally participation in the community forum in February of 2022. To the 46 members of the committee, on behalf of the San Diego Unified School District Board of Education, and on behalf of the community itself, the City of San Diego, please accept our most sincere appreciation for the hard work and dedication each of you provided to the district over the past year as we conducted our search for the next superintendent. You played an important role in ensuring that we as a district worked collaboratively with the community and our educational partners to select the best fit and most qualified candidate to lead San Diego Unified into 2030 and beyond. Your tireless efforts helped us to discover areas that need to be strengthened over the coming years, and we look forward to implementing positive changes based on your input. We will continue to reach out to you to advise us and to bring the diverse and powerful voices of the advisory committee into our decision-making process. Again, thank you for your time and efforts on our behalf, and we truly value your collaboration. Chairperson Chris Rice-Wilson, would you like to say a few words on behalf of the committee?
I certainly would, and thank you so much for the recognition and the partnership. On behalf of the committee, I want to send a job well done, a kudos, a pat on the back, and if I had enough money to buy, roses for all of the folks I'm about to name, I would certainly do that. I want to start with the committee. It was a long service committee, and I want to thank the committee for its leadership, its participation, its thoughtfulness, its caring, and its dedication to the job that was handed to us. Everyone on the committee served admirably, and I really want to thank the committee members who signed up for subcommittees to do the work in between meetings that was necessary for us to meet our deadlines. The leadership of those subcommittees was exemplary and really reflective of the talent and skills that exist within the district and within our communities. I also want to thank the district staff. I've been involved with the San Diego Unified District in a number of capacities over the last 20 years, and I have to say that Marty Stoltz, Acacia Thede, Martha Corrales, Marissa Berriman, and Julie Martell exemplified the excellence that exists within the employees and staff at the San Diego Unified School District. We would not have been successful, we would not have been on time, and we would not have the excellent candidate pool and the excellent finalists, Dr. Jackson, that we had if it were not for the support, the help, and the partnership of the staff who were assigned to this committee. It was a job well done all the way around. And lastly, I'd like to thank the board. Your partnership, your trust, and your belief in us as a committee was instrumental in our success. And I hope that's the work we did all the way around, district staff, committee members, and board of trustees can be a model moving forward for how community, district, and leadership can partner to the success of the school district. And I look forward to any way possible that this committee, members of this committee, including myself, can be of service to the district moving forward. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, you have one speaker, Dr. John Evans.
Oh, our former colleague, Dr. John Lee Evans. Where are you?
Unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes. I hear you.
Okay, I just want to compliment the board for setting up this advisory committee, and also to the committee for choosing Chris Rice-Wilson as the chair. He did an outstanding job. And this is a real broad cross-section of the community and of the school district. So one of the things was this was a very messy process. And we're talking a lot now about democracy and autocracy. Democracy is messy. There are lots of points of view. There are lots of ideas about how to organize and so forth. I do appreciate that the board set it up that we would talk first about the plan for the district, and then second to talk about the superintendent and who would be chosen for superintendent. And one of the things that I found out in this process was, and getting the input from all the community, was the community has a variety of opinions, and it's very difficult to say this is where the entire Sandy Unified School District stands on any particular issue. Because, some people said we need to focus more on equity. Some would say less. Some say more on race, some less. Some more on sex education, some less. I think one thing that was a consensus was about communication, that everybody wanted better communication from the district. And by the way, it wasn't that easy to sign up for public testimony. So just when you go to the website, keep that in mind. But I think this is a great opportunity because it was opened up to everybody across the country. We were able to evaluate candidates and come up with some semifinalists that went on to the board. And I think that was important, particularly how it turned out with an interim superintendent, because people realized it was not a slam dunk, that all of the candidates were very seriously considered. And I think the final choice is something that the committee is very happy about, and the community in general. With Dr. Lamont Jackson, he is definitely a very good listener to the community. He has no fear of controversy. As I said, the board can set the direction and they can run on a certain platform, but the superintendent has to carry it out. And he has to work with all of the community, those that agree with the board, those who disagree with the board. And Dr. Lamont Jackson is perfectly fit for this position. He is a consensus builder, and I think he's going to do a wonderful job. So I think we're very well set for moving on from 2020, 2021, 2022 up to 2030 and beyond, like you said. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and someday we'll be back together in person.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Evans. And other board members, did anybody else want to say anything, or just Trustee Guerrero?
Yeah, thank you, President Whitehurst-Payne. And again, I just very much want to thank Chris Wilson and everybody on the committee. Thank absolutely Marty and Acacia and Marissa and the staff that supported the work of the committee. And the most important, I think, lesson that we took out of it was engaging the community in this way in a process when the board has the big decisions to make, our biggest decisions to make, makes our decisions better. And so I think, we want to, we understand how hard and for how long, the members of the committee worked, but we're going to call on you again. And we're going to call on you when we look at the superintendent evaluation. We're going to call on you when it comes time, to passing our final budget, when we've got these big decisions ahead of us, being able to pull either this committee or a similar, group of people together that represent, as Dr. Evans said, all of the, diversity of viewpoints in our district is really going to improve our decision making. So it's, the fantastic work to get us to this result, but the work is not over, and we look forward to continue working with the committee.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. That's it. We want to thank you all for coming out. Dr. McCrary.
Yeah, I also want to thank Chris and the staff and Dr. John Lee Evans for his kind words, hard work. I think Trustee Barrera said it all, but we made an outstanding choice based upon an outstanding process that led to a decision I think the community staff will, for a long time, benefit. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And with that, we will move on to item C3, which is the recognition of employees for years of service. Superintendent Jackson, please present this item.
Thank you so much. It is a great pleasure to present this on behalf of the Human Resources Division. Thank you, Acacia, and your team for putting this together. This is for March 2022 milestone video.
my name is Angie Gisar. I work in the special ed department. I'm celebrating 20 years of service. During my time at San Diego Unified, I'm most proud of my contributions to students' happiness and positivity. My favorite part about my job as being part of this district is the positive impact we have on students, their families, and their lives. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura Sarponis. I'm the registrar at the San Diego School of Creative and Performing Arts, celebrating 30 years of service. My favorite part about my job and being part of this district is working with and building personal relationships with students and staff that I have been privileged to meet in my 30 years with the district. I'm honored for the 30 years at SDSCPA and look forward to many, many more years. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. I don't see that we have any speakers. Are there any board members who would like to say anything? I just want to say thank you to all of our employees. I know these employees are being recognized today, but I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know that your job has been tough, and some of you are struggling, and you're trying to help our children. But I just want to say thank you, and we do appreciate all the work you're doing to help our students, and the best to you for hanging in there with us. Yes, thank you. And with that, we'll move on to item D1. There's no report from the council, our general counsel. And D2, Superintendent Jackson.
Thank you. I have one administrative assignment, Dr. Whitehurst-Payne, and honored to announce the program manager for placement and appeal, Mr. John Ross, who's going to do a great job. Welcome back to the work around placement and appeal, Mr. Ross, and that is the only one this evening.
Thank you. And now we will move to our ASB folks. We have a couple of people here, and hopefully they're on. Carissa Andrade from Canyon Hills High School, ASB president, and then we have Julianne Sue, who's from Scripps Ranch High School, the ASB president, and also the chair, the president of the Council of ASB Presidents. So would you tell us what's happening at your school, Carissa? And then we'll hear what's happening in the district from Julianne. And then since we're just meeting you, Carissa, you can tell us where you're going to school next year.
Hi, so my name's Carissa. I'm the president at Canyon Hills. Returning back to school it's been a little different. I'm still kind of learning as I'm going as a president and like what I need to be doing. As for other students though, I've heard a lot. Some people are having a great time returning, others are struggling a little bit, and they're all going through their own things. But as an ASB, we've been trying to boost the morale around school and get more students involved in things we have. So we've been having like lunch activities, bringing out sports teams, having a couple of competitions, and our biggest one recently has been our Pie a Teacher in the Face. We had a Spirit Week that week, and students got rewarded for dressing up and participating. We gave them a ticket, and at the end of the week, we drew names, and they got to pick which teacher that participated. But they got to pick what teacher they wanted to pie. So that was definitely a really fun one. And this coming Friday, we actually have a rally. Our first rally is Canyon Hills. So we're still working on that and getting everything set. This coming year, I am planning on finishing my associates and then attending an esthetician school in either El Cajon or Poway. I haven't picked which location yet.
Thank you. Before you go on, I just must know, what kind of pie was it that?
It was just the containers, and we just filled them with whipped cream.
Oh, wow. Whipped cream, okay.
As a teacher that has been a recipient of a dunk tank fundraiser for a school and a whipped cream pie in the face for a fundraiser for a school, thank you very much, Carissa Andrade at Canyon Hills High School, and everything that you guys do to help make school a little bit more exciting given the situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Julianne?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Julianne Sue. I'm the ASB president from Scripps Ranch High School. And as was previously stated, I'm also president of our San Diego Unified Council of ASB Presidents. So we recently had our March council meeting last week on the 16th, and this meeting was actually a little bit different. It was mainly centered around our vision, actually, like for the rest of this year and even transitioning into next year. We're definitely at like over the halfway point, so looking into the future and supporting our future ASB members. So now that field trip and our mask policies are beginning to change, we're officially in the planning process for our ASB Spring Workshop, which will be another opportunity for all of our ASB students and their advisors as well to connect in person. Right now, I'm working on gathering student and staff input from all of the different schools, really making sure that their ideas and their suggestions are acknowledged in this workshop itself, because it's the first one of its kind to be held this year for this current ASB class. The main three topics that we'll be focusing on are publicity and advertising, our school spirit class, and of course, fundraising as a whole. So as the president of our council, one of my responsibilities is really looking into incorporating perspective into these trainings as a whole. I mean, as we all know, the pandemic has definitely shifted the way that we, particularly as ASB, look at so many different aspects of our schools. And so, for example, dances, considering the regulations of social distancing, we've had to look at indoor and outdoor venues. And another topic is connecting to our students. Even though I go to a traditional high school, we still have students who are online, like through our online iHigh Virtual Academy. Other ASBs are, like, for example, Mount Everest, they have to work with connecting to students who are K through 12. So many different opportunities in considering how do we connect face to face, or maybe through a screen, or even through a mask. And so all of these insights as a whole, regarding engagement, opportunity, connection, all of those topics will be reviewed at this workshop itself. And that event doesn't end there. As student leaders on campus, there are so many instances where we're really not able to participate in those activities because we're specifically working behind the scenes. And so on the flip side, at this ASB workshop itself, we'll be concluding it with a rally specifically for all of our ASB students to participate in and, being on the observing side of the scene. I started ASB in middle school, and I can still remember my very first workshop. So we're really hoping that this opportunity will bring our students and staff together and will definitely inspire them to finish this year strong. Outside of planning this big event, we are still paving the way for next year's committees. Our April meeting will be very open. We'll have underclassmen and, maybe some future ASB presidents will be joining us as well as some other speakers from the district. So as a whole, I definitely look forward to welcoming all of these students, and I'm excited to connect with them through all of our leadership activities. That concludes my report. Thank you so much.
And thank you. That was a wonderful report on what's happening district-wide. And I know you talked about the middle school, but are we looking to do something for elementary schools eventually? And I mean, this is probably beyond you, but I'm always asking questions anyway. But I think that's great. But I know we have some elementary schools that have ASB, and they're kind of interested too. But anyway, no, that's wonderful what you're talking about doing, and thank you. That's very good. Yes. And with that, thank you both for your reports tonight. It's kind of exciting, and hopefully you're feeling some of that as you've gone back to school, and we're about to move to the next stage. So thank you very much. Superintendent.
Thank you, Dr. Whitehurst-Payne. It has been busy.
Yes.
As a new superintendent, but I've enjoyed getting out with our students. And as we speak about our elementary students, I was able to join some of our students at Holmes Elementary School and the Sage Garden I was able to do a little cooking from the vegetables and the herbs from the garden with the students out there, and that was great. I was also able to participate in the St. Patrick's Day Parade. Thank you, Trustee Beiser, for making sure that we entered, and thank you to Food Services. We also had transportation out there, and some of our buses, our green buses, and that was great, our e-buses. And thank you to our school police officers, where we also had our van, students speaking out, and I think it was a great event. So thank you for that. Also participating in the VAPA High School Honor Band with some of the trustees, Dr. Whitehurst Payne, thank you, and Trustee Barrera for getting out, and to Russ and the team, phenomenal, and Gene Christensen, who conducted that band. What a great event. We also had and we still have the art exhibition up here at the central office in Wing A, second floor. And this is a great exhibition of our students, K-12, and able to take some photos and hear from students who are sharing their art and their thinking around their art, which was absolutely incredible. I also had the opportunity to join Trustee Patterson out at Hickman Elementary School and visit their program, The Leader in Me. And Trustee Patterson plays a mean game of Foursquare, as well as he also participated in a running race with one of our students out there who challenged him to a race. And he was late coming back into class from recess, so he got an all-call from the principal to let him know it was time to come back and do some learning beyond PE. So thank you, Trustee Patterson.
Did we handle it in a restorative manner?
He had a smile, so we said thank you. I also had an opportunity to meet with two of our students, Peta and Zoe, out at Point Loma High School. And thank you to Principal Lowry for allowing us to engage in a dialogue around student engagement, communication, safety, and the relationships with adults and students at schools. It was a true pleasure, and the entire leadership team at Point Loma was very open to the feedback from their students, and it was a true joy to be there. And I want to close by, and I know that her name continues to come up, and she's receiving the accolades that she deserves, but our very own Dr. Larkin, Cynthia Larkin, the principal at Morris, was featured in the AFL-CIO Daily Brief and also the American Federation of School Administrators, and it is only the second time that San Diego Unified District administrators have been acknowledged in this brief and in AFSA. So congratulations to Dr. Cynthia Larkin for her work on equity, and what she stands for is what we stand for. And thank you, Dr. Larkin, for being a model for who we are. And that concludes my report this evening. Dr. Whitehurst-Payne, thank you.
Thank you. And congratulations also to Dr. Larkin from Morris High School. High school, right? Yes. I want to start with Trustee Patterson because he was nodding at your report.
Sharon, am I running the timer?
Are you running the timer?
Yes, let's go ahead.
Answer is two. Oh, wow.
You asked that.
Whoa,
Here we go.
Pressure's on.
I'm going to get in trouble.
Pressure, 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Alrighty. So to begin with, after I was, another trustee made a friendly challenge to me to attempt to improve my elementary school outreach. Coincidentally, I had just visited an elementary school the day before. So I went with Dr. Jackson to Hickman Elementary School, and I was going there to really understand what the Leader in Me program was about. I'd heard the term, but I didn't really know what the 7 highly effective habits were and what that message was. And what I was so impressed to find specifically were how focused students were on their purpose, on who they were and where they want to be. One of the things that I think I've learned from this board, and I've learned in some of the work that I've done, is when a student understands what they want to be and what they want to do with their lives, they are significantly more likely to understand that these are the steps I need to get there. And I saw that at Hickman. I saw students that could tell me, I want to be a doctor. I saw students that could say, I want to work in construction. I want to do whatever it may be. And it was beautiful because it showed passion, and students knew the mission by heart. They understood what the values were, and they owned this idea of what it means to be a leader in me, and whether that meant leading the classroom or just leading yourself, leading your own life, working to improve yourself and be a stronger person. And I think that really is a grounds for how we can increase our work to increase the pipeline of student leadership. And then also just to, when we talk about closing the achievement gap, because what Hickman gave those students and what they have there is an environment that wants them to be successful and that wants them to be successful with whatever they're working towards. And that was really, really beautiful to me. The other thing I wanted to cover, wow. I'll give myself 30 seconds more. The other thing I wanted to cover, just commenting on what you mentioned, Trustee Whitehurst-Payne, with elementary school ASBs, I think we definitely have work to do there, and I think that definitely requires infrastructure and us as a district working to see where is that going to go. So I'm really looking forward to a further and more robust discussion on finding out where we can fit in elementary school ASBs, whether that be our current infrastructure or whether that be a new role. Thank you.
Yes, I did challenge you on that, didn't I? I added that. And now let's move to the Vice President.
I believe that I am sharing a board report with Dr. Mike for a video that we're going to be sharing.
Okay, very good. Let's see the video.
Yeah, terrific. So before we do that, so by the minute, the war in Ukraine worsens, and women, children, and elderly Ukrainians are fleeing their country in increasing numbers by the millions, while men, women, and other family members and national leaders stay to defend their freedoms, democracy, and country against Russian invaders who are led by a Russian autocrat who has been declared a war criminal. In response to this horrific situation, San Diego Unified School Board passed a resolution asking for the war to end and declaring that San Diego schools are a welcoming place for refugee Ukrainian students and their families. This is not the first time that San Diego Unified has opened its doors and arms to receive refugee students and families. Earlier this year, after the collapse of the government in Afghanistan, 130,000 Afghanistans left their country, with 50,000 landing in the U.S. and 300 of those continuing on to San Diego. The video that will be shared here tonight describes the outreach that San Diego Unified District did in locating these students, assessing their needs, and assisting them to find homes and schools across the district. Our hearts go out to these refugees who were forced to leave their homes and survive incredible challenges to arrive in San Diego neighborhoods and schools. They are welcome, and we thank them for choosing to share their stories and their lives with us. We are enriched by their presence, made wealthier by the inclusion, and become stronger by the increased diversity. Thank you, Marceline Marquez, Dr. Michelle Einspar, Richard Barrera, Superintendent Dr. Jackson, Principal Nona Richards, and Honorable Susan Davis for helping to tell this story. So let's play the video and learn how this story plays out in San Diego Unified.
In the chaotic last days of the U.S. presence in the country, nearly 130,000 people were airlifted from Afghanistan, including more than 50,000 Afghans who will be resettled in the United States.
It was a chaos, but he made it with his family through the gate, and some American soldiers helped him out, and he's really, really thankful for those guys that helped him out through the gate. And from there, he came to Kuwait. He stayed there for a couple days in Kuwait, and after Kuwait, he came to Virginia with his family, and he stayed in one of those military bases, which is, I think, in Camp Atterbury in Indiana. He stayed there for 3.5 months with his family, and he's finally in San Diego. He's staying at this hotel.
As soon as we found out that our new Afghan families were here, we began doing outreach to the various agencies that were helping with their resettlement and trying to find out where are they, what school is closest, and how we can most quickly get them enrolled in school.
This is an incredible experience, obviously, for the students. Their first day at school in America, their first day at school in San Diego, but also to our students and staff who are welcoming them into our community.
Well, it's what we're here for. We're making that extra effort. These families, as we've reached out to them, they've been through so much, and they've gone through a lot to get here. So we're helping them get into school so they can continue to learn and grow and be a part of our society.
I think you hear about things going on around the world, but you never expect that you'll have an opportunity to make such a direct impact.
All right, we got necklaces, and we got bears, and t-shirts welcoming our new students. They're phenomenal. This is what San Diego Unified does. We show up.
This is what the United States is about. You know, we all have come from somewhere else at some point in time, and that's what makes our country beautiful and great, and that's what makes San Diego Unified beautiful and great. We're a very diverse school district, and now we have even more members of our family, so super excited about it.
We want them to have a wonderful experience right now, starting today. We know that they care deeply about being educated, and it's particularly important that they know that there are going to be people here who want to know about them, who care about them, and who want to teach them.
He's saying thank you very much for coming down here and enrolling our kids in the school district, which is a tremendous help for him and his family, and it's a great opportunity for their kids to follow their dreams and study and pursue their happiness.
Thank you for allowing me the time to uplift this incredible story.
Thank you, Dr. Mike. And Sabrina? Does make you want to cry, doesn't it? Did mention it to the congressman also, but I'll talk about that later. Trustee Barrera.
Yeah, thank you, President Whitehurst Payne. So I knew he wouldn't do it himself, so my board information report is going to be putting Trustee Patterson on the spot to tell us where you're going to be going to school next year. Trustee Patterson.
Well, hopefully the foundation doesn't get angry at me for this one.
Oh, sorry.
What the heck? I've been awarded a full-ride scholarship to Duke University.
And you will be studying education policy?
I'm looking to study public policy and education policy at Duke and UNC. It's really a dream come true.
Well, congratulations, Trustee Patterson. You will leave a permanent legacy here in this district, and we know that if what you do in the future in some way or another connects to education, which I'm sure it will, you're going to make public education in this country much better. You're an incredible leader, a courageous, intelligent, hardworking leader, and you will continue to do amazing things going forward. And we're honored to have been able to serve with you on this board. Congratulations.
And I'm honored that he's going to my alma mater. Yes, out of all the places in the world. Yes, very good.
And I'll add that Dr. Jackson and I got to go to UC High School today and take a picture with Zachary for his yearbook because he's got nominated as most likely to become president.
We believe that, although, I mean, maybe of the world, because he's getting 2 semesters abroad somewhere. Duke is funding that. So, I mean, yes, he's doing well. Good. Congratulations. And Trustee Beiser.
Thank you, President Dr. Sharon Widers-Payne. I, too, want to echo the remarks of Trustee Barrera. Thank you very much. I think that the indelible mark that you've left on this school district and these children in San Diego is the fact that we've got to make sure that we always are listening to the students. And I just want to thank you for helping to continue that focus, and so we don't take our eyes off the prize. I also want to thank Dr. Lamont Jackson, Superintendent, for participating in the St. Patrick's Day Parade. I think that it's continuing a very important tradition in our school district of being connected with the community and being a part of community events and activities and things like that. Help parents and the community know that we're accessible and that we're transparent and that we're open, and that we want to work together. As was mentioned earlier with the Superintendent Search Committee, we want to earnestly work together with the community to make San Diego schools and San Diego a better place. So thank you.
And that leads to my report. I think I have 4 or 5 pictures there. Last week I was in Ashburn, Virginia, and while back there on Friday, I met with the chair of the Education Committee from Congress, from the House of Representatives. I met with Congressman Bobby Scott at his office there at the Rabin House. And I understand this was the first time that our consultant, Michael Uden, had been there in 2 years. So he was really surprised we were able to get in to this marbled place that's really kind of high quality here. But basically, we had a chance to sit down with his director of education and his director of labor and a bunch of staff members. And we shared what we've been doing with the resources that they've given us and what our needs are going forward. So it was really exciting to meet him there at the Capitol's Rayburn House. By the way, they have 3 office buildings there for the representatives and 3 for the Senate. So we did the Rayburn House. And then on Sunday, on March 20th, we went to see our former superintendent. Cindy Martin and Stacy Monreal was there with her. So she gave a speech and we had to take a picture. But anyway, it was at the Mayflower Hotel and we listened to her and shared. I just want us to continue to advocate for public education, for education in general, with our legislators, our executive branch, et cetera, so that they know who we are. We shared about all the various needs that we have as a district, even shared something about the Afghan students and what we've done there, about the fact that they're not funding us for special education programs for IDEA, or we want them to keep in mind the impact aid, et cetera. So it was a very interesting and exciting trip, and I did get to see my great nephew, which was the original goal. But anyway, it turned out to be a good thing. Thank you all for listening, and thank you for noting all the things we did here, and you for noting the things that we did with the Afghan students, et cetera. Congratulations to you again, Zach, okay? Thank you. Let us now move on with all of the reports. We now move to the LCAP Goal 1 update, Community Schools, E1 on the agenda. And I would like to have Superintendent to go ahead and introduce the item.
Thank you, Dr. Whitehurst-Payne. And as you mentioned, in alignment with LCAP Goal 1, cultivating inclusive, anti-racist, and restorative schools, classrooms, and districts, we have the great pleasure of welcoming a group of folks who have been working hard through the Community Schools Advisory Committee under the leadership of Ms. Nicole DeWitt and Aaron Peterson, who will be joining us on virtually as he makes his transition into San Diego. And also Dr. Kyle Weinberg from SDA, who is part of this, and also a great member of the committee, our student Isabella Millard, who will be joining as well. This is a collective presentation symbolic of the work that they are doing, and I'll turn it over to Ms. DeWitt.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Superintendent Jackson. So very excited to announce our progress as a Community School Advisory Committee on implementing our first cohort of community schools as it relates to Goal 1 in our LCAP. So just to review quickly, we did say in our LCAP that we would identify 3 to 5 community schools in high needs areas to really provide targeted services that serve the whole child as well as the community. So really ensuring that our schools are becoming hubs of our community that can provide a really large breadth and depth of services to our students and to our families. And so with that, I'm actually going to turn it over virtually to Dr. Kyle Weinberg, who's going to talk a little bit more about some of the funding opportunities that we have available for us through the state.
Thank you, Nicole. So we have led the way as San Diego Unified with our community schools initiative that has actually set a template, us along with Los Angeles and San Francisco, for how we could do community schools statewide. And the schools, the state's bill for the funded schools for the school year also includes a grant for up to $3 billion statewide to implement community schools throughout the state that are following the pillars and mechanisms that we have already established within our school district. And so the plan is that district staff, like our district community schools coordinator, along with our community schools advisory committee that was established by the 2020 community schools resolution that our school board passed, will collectively develop and submit an implementation grant application for this spring that, if granted, will require the district to match funds equal to 1/3 of the grant amount. And that grant can be used to fund the establishment of up to 5 community schools in the upcoming school year, and also the continual expansion of community schools in the succeeding school years. And this is the timeline for community schools implementation. So in January, we opened our application for our initial cohort of community schools that are going to be designated for the 22-23 school year. That application window closed at the end of February. As the Community Schools Advisory Committee, the designation work group, we looked at those applications. We made really hard decisions on the schools that we are recommending for designation. And we brought those recommendations to the Community Schools Advisory Committee meeting that occurred a few weeks ago. Once schools are designated, then in April, we can start the hiring process for the site community school coordinators that would be assigned 1 full-time to each community school. And then also starting in April, we can begin to build the capacity of those site coordinators and other members of community school communities around the community schools model. And then starting next school year, we will be starting the transformation of our San Diego Unified Community Schools with the needs assessment and the asset mapping process at each school site.
Thank you, Kyle, and good afternoon, everyone. So last year, the SUSD Board of Education convened the Community School Advisory Committee, and we were charged with 3 things. So first, we were to designate a primary cohort of up to 5 community schools who would begin their transformation in this coming school year. Having done that, we will now second, evaluate community implementation using benchmarks developed by the Community Schools Implementation Team. And third, continually facilitate, support, and refine the community school implementation process. Through representation from students like myself, parents, community partners, district staff, and labor unions on this committee, the SUSD Community Schools Initiative seeks to model the tenets of collaborative leadership through an infrastructure that leverages the expertise of diverse school and community leaders.
Good evening, everybody. Aaron Peterson, the District Community Schools Coordinator. So this slide, number 6, the next slide we're talking about is just to remind the board of the commitment that it made through a resolution that includes funding up to 5 schools and has authorized the creation of the aforementioned Community School Implementation Team that established the model that will be used to move forward and establish the community schools program or initiative here in San Diego Unified. That work since then, since the adoption of this resolution, and the CSIT has been moved and transferred over to what is now the CSAC, the Community School Advisory Committee, that is going to be putting together the structures for the district itself, as well as the schools, and creating the model that will follow. And then moving on to the next slide. So the community school, the CSAC, that is now the committee that was created from the CSIT, which kind of broke down the implementation and now the steps. The CSAC went through, as Kyle mentioned in the timeline, they went through and they selected 5 schools to become the first cohort of community schools in San Diego Unified. So here they are for you guys to take a look at and hopefully approve tonight. Each school in the selection process we went through, each school displayed a really unique set of values, initiatives, and relationships with community organizations, community partners, and families that we feel make them strong candidates for consideration. And so, again, you guys can preview some of the strengths that each school displayed in their community school narrative that was submitted and reviewed by the Community School Advisory Committee. And so with that, we are hoping that the board approve these 5 schools to begin as the first cohort in 22-23, and we'll begin the hiring process of coordinators and the launching of the official Community Schools Initiative.
Great. Thank you so much, Aaron. So in addition to the work around selecting this first cohort of schools, the Community Schools Advisory Council has also been discussing additional recommendations to make sure that we have a very viable program that is implementing the pillars of the community school model with fidelity. So in addition to the 5 schools that we're recommending, we're also recommending that we add additional schools to the Community Schools Initiative for subsequent academic years, that we maintain a district community school coordinator position as well as site community school coordinator positions for selected schools, and that those individuals participate in a professional learning community throughout the year. And then as a district that we complete a yearly analysis of the Community Schools Initiative infrastructure to support the growing number of schools and programs as we see this really expand over the years. So at this time we are seeking board approval for the recommendation of our 5 schools, which again are Hancock Elementary, Mountain View K-8, Millennial Tech Middle, Hoover High School, and Alba, which is one of our atypical alternative schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, wow. We have some speakers, I believe, on this. We have 8 speakers.
We have 5 speakers, I believe.
Just some X's down here. Samantha Cruz, Sarah Farouk, Dan Namangaya. I can say it, Namanga, yes, thank you. Margarita Machado Casas and Renee Zambrano. Please speak.
Hi, everyone. My name is Samantha Cruz. I am a member of the Community Schools Coalition, and I am also a representative for ADE, which is the Association of Raza Educators. We have a chapter here in San Diego. We also have chapters in Los Angeles, Sacramento, Santa Barbara. And the purpose of our organization is for teachers who want to do more than just teach critical content. It's a community of organization, of educators, students, and everyday people who actively organize campaigns in their communities. And that's why ADE is part of the community schools model and what we would like to push forward. We appreciate the board's vision when they voted unanimously to adopt the community schools resolution in 2020 that set the process in motion that led to the 5 San Diego Unified School District community schools that the board is designating tonight. We definitely want to uplift the leadership of the board in demonstrating its commitment to deepen and expand the community school initiative through its plan to designate additional highest need San Diego Unified schools in each subsequent school year. And we appreciate the time and the commitment to designating community schools, and we hope that this continues and we continue this model. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sarah?
Not on. The next one will be Dan.
Dan Nyamanga? Dan, please unmute yourself and speak. Let's see. Dan, we see you. Would you please unmute yourself?
There you go. Did it work?
Thank you. You're next.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. My name is Daniel Manga with the State San Diego at the Crawford Community Connection. I work with the group called the PSRO, Parent Student Resident Organization, and also a member of the San Diego Community Schools Coalition since inception. I just want to add that as a district, we are very ahead of our time in the way we are running the community schools initiative. With the collectiveness and the communityness, and also the intention of bringing the community around the school to support and work together with the school administration and the district staff to building a stronger community. And I really want to make sure that as a district, we do not stop the momentum, and also the leadership from the board to keep on moving forward and adding more schools to this initiative so that we can make better schools for our kids and for the future generations, and also to promote that collectiveness that we have seen over the last few years, especially in the community schools, in building and supporting our teachers, supporting our principals, supporting our students, and supporting our parents and the community organizations that are supporting these families at the school or around the schools. So it's a challenge for the board. Let's not stop here. Let's move forward and also keep on bringing in the community in the support. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Margarita Machado Gasas?
I think was it Sarah is on now. Sarah Baruch.
Oh, okay. Sarah Baruch, you there? Please unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening, members of the board. My name is Sarah Farouk. I'm an organizer at the Center on Policy Initiatives and the organizer for the San Diego Community Schools Coalition. We are excited to see the vision of our coalition that started back in 2018 come into fruition here at this meeting today. We are excited and thrilled that the San Diego Unified School District Board of Education shares our vision and has shown us a commitment to invest in transforming our education system and uplifting our communities. This is a critical moment in the history of San Diego Unified School District and public education in San Diego. We believe community schools are crucial in advancing educational, racial, and economic equity at our local public schools. Now more than ever, in a global health and economic crisis, we are seeing how a community school model is essential for our students, our families, but also our community members in the neighborhoods surrounding our schools. We believe that community schools are the way to ensure that Black, Brown, and low-income families will have the schools that center their voices and their vision. Being in partnership with San Diego Unified School District has been essential in the actualization of the community school model in our district, especially in its plan to deepen and expand this initiative. And it's important that the San Diego Unified School District Board commit to funding the district infrastructure and continuing to collaborate with the Community School Advisory Committee in implementing and growing community schools in our district. We hope that we can continue to build on our partnership, and at the San Diego Unified Board of Education, we'll commit to investing in the community school model and its maintenance and growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Margarita Machado Casas, unmute yourself, please. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Good afternoon, STEAM, San Diego Unified School Board members. My name is Dr. Margarita Machado Casas, and I'm the chair of the Dual Language and English Learner Education at San Diego State University. We are the largest bilingual credential program in the state of California, and now, as of probably 2 weeks ago, the United States. And I'm a member of the San Diego Community Schools Coalition, and also a member of the SDSU team that is part of the coalition. Since 2018, our coalition has championed the transformation of SDUSD schools to be hubs of the community that center local assets and priorities. And this campaign, as you know, this coalition aims to transform schools in San Diego Unified School Districts. DILE at SDSU, like I mentioned, is the largest bilingual credential program in the state, and we have been partnering not only with San Diego Unified School District, but also through this coalition because we understand the needs of our community and our students. We serve mostly and largely a lot of the students that you have in your in the school district become teachers and come to our program to become teachers. And so DILE at SDSU supports the 4 pillars that Communities in School Coalition is aiming to integrate as part of this proposal. And we appreciate that the board's vision, when voting unanimously to adopt the community school resolution, in 2020, that set the process in motion that led to the 5 SDUSD community schools that the board designated tonight. We really would like to continue to have you support in order to continue being leaders in the region in sustaining the expansion of transformational community in schools that empower students and families, staff, community partners. It's really important that the board commit to funding the district infrastructure. And so we really ask you today to vote yes and to continue to support this amazing, coalition that has brought so many amazing partners and it's going to make a difference for our community. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you so much.
De nada. Thank you for your presentation. Let's have Renee Zambrano. Renee, you want
to unmute yourself? Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, just want to make sure I'm on my phone, so just want to make sure you all can hear me clearly. Again, I'm Renee Zambrano, member of the Association of Raza Educators, chairing that organization this year. Also a teacher at Millennial Tech Middle School, board member with the SDA, and one of the original persons that began in this community school coalition back in 2018. It's been a great journey so far, the last 4 years of the work that's been done around community schools and the partnership with the district and ensuring that this model is sustainable. So I want to say specifically that, I know that our colleagues mentioned how important it is for the board to continue supporting community schools, but I want to specifically mention the 4 pillars, right? As you know, that the community school model is based on integrated student support, expanded enrichment learning, time and opportunities, family and community partnerships, and collaborative leadership. Specifically, I want to talk about the expanded and enrichment learning, time and opportunities. As we know, this pillar is based on academic support and enrichment and real-world learning opportunities. For example, internships, project-based learning, after-school, weekend, and summer programs for students and families. And in our school district, we want to make sure that we push to ensure that this pillar of expanded and enrichment learning, time and opportunities, that it is sustained with funding and so that it maintains its integrity and fidelity. And as Dr. Margarita was mentioning, the importance of continuing to support the multilingual learner support, through partnership with the universities and ensuring that this dual language programs or multilingual programs are expanded, because I know for a fact that is not, especially with the pandemic, COVID, we stopped that work to ensure that the schools from elementary to middle school to high school, that the dual language models are thoroughly expanded. So I know that we need to continue supporting that, so our students are prepared for real world experiences after high school. In addition, that the COVID has exacerbated poverty, so we want to make sure that the school board, our leaders, support the free broadband internet. Many of our families that I've spoken to, testimonies, many of our families talk about how they cannot afford internet at home, and so that's a critical need in our communities if we want to make sure that we address the equity issue. Additionally, the green spaces, classes, activities on campus after school and on weekends, holidays, in partnership with City Recreation Department.
Thank you. Thank you, Renee, for your input. I would like to get a motion on this item.
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Beiser, and a second is Trustee Barrera. Thank you. And now, any questions or comments from board members? Yes, Trustee Barrera.
Yeah, I want to thank the members of the Community School Advisory Committee and the Community Schools Coalition that brought this vision forward, to our district several years ago. And of course, thank Superintendent Jackson and Nicole and the leadership on our staff that is moving the concept of community schools forward in our district in an incredibly thoughtful way. So we see that in the diversity of the schools that are being recommended tonight. I know that those schools themselves went through a rigorous process to bring forward successful applications, but it's obvious that when we look at this mix of schools, what you're doing is setting us up to learn, so that as we begin to take community schools to scale across the district, we've got learning from a middle school, a K-8 school, a school with a large military population, Alba an alternative school, Hoover a comprehensive high school, Mountain View a pilot school. It really represents a broad range of the schools in our district, and I especially appreciate the additional recommendations about how to grow community schools, how to pull this group together in a professional learning community, and how to build the district infrastructure as we move forward. So everything that you're doing is setting us up for success in this model moving forward. And I think it's particularly important that we do that in San Diego, because with the partnerships that we have, to be able, to move community schools, I think we need to be exerting our voice at the state level and at the federal level, as state and federal governments are also committing to investment in the community schools model. They need to be able to learn from a district like ours that I think is a little bit out in front and is doing this so thoughtfully, so that the resources that can support community schools long term, we're putting our resources in, as the speakers have mentioned, but we need the state and federal resources to also line up so that they can support the strategic expansion of this model, because this is something that obviously we want to move forward in many of our schools throughout the district. So again, appreciate the work, appreciate the thoughtfulness, and we look forward to hearing from this first cohort as the year goes forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others? Vice President.
Yeah, thank you very much for those comments, Trustee Barrera. I also wanted to echo, I'm very excited about this this program, this initiative, and it's so student-centered. It looks at our LCAP goals and kind of combines all of them into this one concept, and I love how it's so comprehensive because we talk about social emotional issues and we talk about academic achievement and we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and it's kind of embracing all of those concepts in this central goal, and it's very exciting, and it's very cutting edge. I talked to school board members from across the country. I'm in this new board member training program, and no one else is doing that, at this level. So we really are leaders in this program. I did have one question. When you talk about the asset mapping, I think that's one of the goals in August. At the asset mapping process, I'm not familiar with that term. I know what needs assessment is, but I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about what goes into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason why we're using the term asset mapping is that we really want to look at the assets of the community to identify areas of strength, but then areas that could also use some more growth, areas that there might be some gaps. And so that's why we are using the language asset mapping versus needs assessment, which I think has been more commonly used in the past. We do want to lead with that assets mindset to see what is already existing, what is already working well, and what can we add in addition to that to, again, really address the whole child.
Thank you. Trustee Patterson.
Thank you. I just had a quick question. So the additional recommendations, are those formal recommendations that we're approving tonight? Okay, so I just wanted to understand, add additional schools to the Community Schools Initiative, have we already allocated the funding? Because just additional schools, obviously, that doesn't specify specifically, so I wanted to understand what exactly we're approving.
Thank you. Yes, we're approving up to the 5. Once we approve these 5, then the advisory group will engage the schools in what the expectations are moving forward to see if they applied. Now here are the expectations. There are some discussions with our labor groups because there are some perhaps some modifications that need to be considered in terms of contractual matters, but we are setting aside the funds for that. I think as Trustee Barrera said, we need to continue to advocate and collaborate with folks at the state, our superintendent, folks like Linda Darling-Hammond, who's led this initiative, as well as electeds at the federal level, so that we can see revenue. Because this is about $500,000 per school, and that's something that we are not going to be able to sustain alone, ourselves. We're fortunate enough to have federal and state dollars now, but as we go forward, as Trustee Barrera mentioned, we're going to need the partners, we're going to need the grant funds. As Dr. Weinberg said, we have funds, or we'll need to match funds, but we're going to need those funds as well going forward.
Okay, so any further expansion, that would come back as we work to move from 5 to 7
we have to
10.
consider our LCAP goals, our current funding, what funds we're using for other programs, and how we're allocating our funds currently, and how we're doing it in the out years as we go forward.
And in terms of the projection for what that looks like, how do we intend to work to increase that in future years when we're looking at our vision for our 5-year plan?
And I'm going to turn over to Nicole. I would suggest that one of the things is making sure that schools are meeting the application process and the pillars that we set forward. And then when we go forward with the expectations, that they're also agreeing to meet those expectations as they say yes. So these 5 schools have met the requirements by the application. We have a few more schools, I think 4, that were in the first round. And now we'll go back out and see if they're willing to do this. So that same process will be used, and the advisory committee is working together to ensure that all the pillars are established and that schools are meeting those pillars as we go forward. Nicole, you want to say anything about
Just
that?
before you speak, that was one of my questions also. How many schools applied? I think you're saying now 4 additional
9
ones.
total.
And the whole process
Yes.
that Zach is asking about, so.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did have 9 schools that submitted a completed application. We did have other schools that were interested but did not submit a completed application. So we had 9 completed applications, and out of those 9, we are recommending the 5 move forward in that first cohort. And I think one of the things that we've discussed as a Community Schools Advisory Council is really the need to make data-driven decisions when we're talking about the expansion of our program, because just simply saying you're a community school doesn't mean you're a community school, because there are pillars to the community school model, and we want to make sure that our community schools are implementing those pillars with fidelity. So one of the main roles and responsibilities of our district community school coordinator, Aaron Peterson, is to actually work with the school sites to identify what those goals are for each individual site on how they're going to implement those pillars and the steps that they're going to take, and then progress monitoring throughout the year and bringing that data back to the Community Schools Advisory Committee in order to evaluate next steps in the program. I think one thing we have to be really cautious of is getting stuck on a particular number of schools for each year, because we really want to make sure that we do this well. And I always lean on Dr. Jackson. He always reminds me, go slow to go fast. And so I always think about that in the back of my mind, because like you were all saying, there's a lot of eyes on us right now, because we are establishing this within San Diego County at a large scale. And so we want to make sure that we do it well, because we do unfortunately know across the nation there have been several failed community schools model, and we don't want that to be us. So we really want to make sure that we're making decisions based on data and what's happening out there in the field, and that we're supporting and uplifting our schools through the process.
Perfect, yeah, very helpful. Just the one other technical question I had. The $500,000 that you talk about, is that going directly to the school, or is that included with the community schools coordinator at the district level?
Nicole, you want to get that one?
Yeah. So part of those funds are actually dedicated to have a site-based coordinator. So a portion of those funds will be for that position to help bring those services into the school. And then regarding the additional funds, we will be keeping the additional funds centrally in our community schools program, because again, the site coordinators will be working with our district coordinator to make sure that the services that are being contracted meet the needs of the community. So we want to make sure that it's adhering to those 4 pillars, those tenets of the community school model, and we're not just throwing services at a school and hoping that it's going to work. So as schools are identifying needs, they will work with our district coordinator to tap into those funding sources in order to bring those services to their school sites.
Can I clarify one thing? I said this, and I want to be clear, because people hear it and it's not necessarily what I meant. So one of the things we have to pay attention to is how we're working with our labor partners. And I said modifications. That I'm talking about agreements. We have to work with our partners in terms of what the contract says, aligned with the community school pillars in partnership. So it's not us modifying the language. We follow and honor the contract and the agreements that we make with our labor partners. So just for clarification.
Thank you. Trustee Beiser.
This is a very exciting day for me as a teacher. I really want to appreciate Renee Zambrano, who highlighted really the pillar of this community school program that really hits me in the heart, and that is the extending the school day, extending the school week, extending the school year. Having intercession opportunities. And this is all focused 100% on helping the children improve academically, because everybody learns. Some people just learn at a little different pace. And this helps us to wrap our curriculum and academic arms around our children to help them improve, especially given the fact that some students have really some significant gains to make up because they've been struggling with the COVID situation. So I really appreciate Renee for talking about that. The academic pillar of the community school plan is phenomenal. And that's where some of the money will be going to. And that's why we have to bargain impacts and effects with the educators, who will be the ones that will be staying after school and coming in on Saturday and working with children to help them get caught up to academics. So thank you very much for all your work on this. And Dr. Lamont, thank you very much for bringing it home. Appreciate it. I can't wait till this is in every school.
Thank you. Dr. McQuarrie?
Yeah, thank you. Great report. A terrific program. Looking forward to its implementation and the announcement that we do receive the grant and we can move forward. But I don't have a question, but I do have an appreciative comment. So Trustee Barrera mentioned the diverse selection of schools and how this will help us bring the effort to scale. Richard mentioned the unique attributes of 4 of the 5 selected schools. I want to lift up the 5th school, Hancock Elementary, which is in the Canyon Hills cluster. I was pleased to see Hancock Elementary School on the list. Hancock has a very high percent of its students who are from military families. Incorporating these military families in the Community Schools Initiative will help us to better understand and serve these students and their family members. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to say that in my meeting with Chair Scott on last Friday, although it was not on our agenda, the topic did come up about the community schools. And we were very careful to lift up that point that you just made, Mike. He's from the Hampton Roads area where they have a large military presence also, so he's very interested in what they're getting, the services that they're getting also. So that is a good point about Hancock. I want to say, and we were, of course, asking them to think about revenue long-term as we move forward, because I let him know that we're leading the charge here with doing this, but we expect the state and the feds to kick in and help us along the way. And he listened at least. I want to say I too appreciate the stratification approach, the fact that you didn't just get 3 elementaries and 2 high schools, or you looked out for all levels. And I think Richard's point is well taken, that we will use this kind of as a petri dish to find out what's happening at each level and move forward with that. And I mean, I know 9 schools actually went through the process, but hopefully enough are expressing an interest beyond this so that if they begin to see what's happening at these schools, then more people will become interested and go through the process to apply for the grant and come on board. We know Crawford is already pushing for that, so consider him. We'll put in the plug next year for them already, but thank you. What can I say? I'm always plugging for my schools, always plugging for my schools. Yes, I'm president of all of the schools, but I still get the right to put in for mine too. Thank you. So if there are no other questions, I want Trustee Patterson to vote first.
Aye.
Aye, okay. And Trustee Dr. McQuarrie?
Aye.
Aye, and everybody else is pushing the button. Okay, so that passes unanimously with the student board member concurring with that vote. Thank you, and thank you to staff for all the work you've done, and I know it's been up and down, but we're there. We're moving forward. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Mr. Wade.
And let us move on to E2, which is another LCAP goal number 5. We're getting an update from engaging families as partners to accelerate learning. Want to introduce the item?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Whitehurst-Payne. President Dr. Whitehurst-Payne, sorry. This evening, in alignment with goal number 5, we have the Honorable Ms. Pam King, who will be updating us on family and community engagement and highly regarded neighborhood schools that serve student families and communities, and she will be talking about the work that she's engaged in. As you know, our focus is really to engage more families, as their partnership is critical to student success and achievement. So I'll turn it over to Ms. King. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Dr. Jackson, Board Vice President, and Board President, trustees, for the opportunity to share. Can you hear me? Okay. For the opportunity to share midpoint updates about LCAP Goal 5, which is family and community engagement with highly regarded neighborhood schools that serve students, families, and communities, with the emphasis on engaging families as partners to accelerate student learning. So when we think about our collective why, we go from research-based, which it shows that family engagement, in order for it to be effective, needs to build, is essential for building that pathway for students from the cradle to the college to career and that college readiness. So our goal is, and our commitment is to cultivate and sustain those trusted relationships. When we speak of educational partners, we're talking about parents, family members, anyone who plays a role in that child's life, right? It could be a coach, it could be extended family, as well as our community partners and our community organizations, really engaging them as valued and trusted partners and sharing in the commitment to and the responsibility of educating our children. So there are fundamental process conditions for powerful partnerships. And it really stems around link to learning. And so we want to align the workshops and the family engagement opportunities really around not only academics, but that developmental piece for student achievement, and as well as making it relational. When we speak of relational, we're talking about relational trust. Developing and sustaining those relationships, not just between educators and parents, but among parents themselves, that networking ability, as well as developmental. Believing that families are bringing knowledge that we can build on. We've stated it before with the asset base, but looking from what families bring, even that cultural richness they bring, and letting them know that the diversity, all of that knowledge that we can build on to support student learning, making it collaborative, honoring our family's home language, their culture, their experience, bringing that into the learning as well, and then interactive, so it's not done to, it's done with. We're learning together. We're practicing this together. This is something that you're practicing, but you can try on and live it, right? So these are ways to build those powerful partnerships. Now, what we're doing is aligned to our LCAP goals. We have 3 focus areas, which is really strengthening and building those connections with the relationships with families and with the educational partners. And so with that, we're also having that shared leadership opportunities. So we want families to be a part of the decision making. We want families to be not only at the schools, but engage in every aspect. So it's like the systematic sustainability approach. It's not just involvement, it's engagement throughout the educational system and really understanding. So valuing that input, valuing that feedback, and really having them be a part and a partner in the education. And it still goes back to being linked to learning. We want to make sure that we're building their capacity and their efficacy, knowing that they can, and they can not only do the work, but they can also support their child learning. So families not only feel involved, they are involved in the process. So with our work, the focus is continuous engagement through an equity lens. That means really honoring our families' voices, and this is what we've accomplished thus far. We have workshops with an integrated approach. So we listen to our families' feedback based on their requests and what they say that they need. That's what we deliver to them. If it's something outside of the family engagement scope, maybe it's mental health, we go to the mental health department. We collaborate together, bring the experts in so they get that right on the spot support from the expert, right? And so we're working together to meet the needs of our families. We not only do that with our departments, but we've done that with our community organizations that we've partnered with our advisory committees, with all of them we've done that with. We have families that we support with our refugee families and really supporting school sites to support our families. And also we have making sure that we ensure access for all families, so in their language. So we offer the interpretation services at the request of a family member. Any service, any language they would like to have, we make sure we have it available for them. Most importantly, building that family self-efficacy and having that mutual support for student learning. So we're working together, and then we are using data to drive and inform our work. So we don't do what we think is best for families. We listen to our families, we honor their voices, and we meet them where they're at and bring their needs to them, and making sure that we have their feedback. So even when we engage them in the process, we continually get their feedback to see what worked well, what needs to be modified, what needs to be, as we do the reflection, plan and start anew. So we make sure that it's all data-driven based on what our families are saying. And from that, the data shows we've made impact, and I'm so excited to say that we've made impact. What you see here on the screen in orange is the data from the previous year, July 2020 to January 2021, and then blue will be July 2021 to January 2022. And you can see that we have increased. So the evidence shows that we have increased with our family engagement and engaging our families. And that's in part to really focusing on those LCAP goals. Everything we do is linked to learning. It's that mutual engagement. It's learning and practicing with one another, as well as really honing in on how can we enhance student engagement, but school improvement as well. So we have here, I can't see that far, I'm so sorry. What you see here is this advances in the family engagement website visits. So that has increased as well. I'm just going to pull it up here for my vision, sorry. And then as well as with our virtual workshops, I can say with the virtual workshops, it's been tremendous because we've had a diverse group of families. It's beautiful to see whole families sitting around engaging interactively in the workshops, but also verbally articulating questions or sharing feedback with one another, right? Giving what strategies work well. So we have the virtual workshops increase, and then the community resources, that includes things like the food, backpacks, we've done school supplies, we've done turkey giveaways, we've done books. So those things that we've done as well with our families, still based on our LCAP goals. And then when you look at the next, here we have the family engagement opportunities with outreach. We've collaborated, as I stated before, with our community partners. We've collaborated with elected officials. We've collaborated with many community organizations and faith-based organizations to support our families. So we've gone to different neighborhoods to support, and we've collaborated with some board members as well to make sure that we brought resources to our families. We have the trainings, all these trainings that we've offered are based on families' requests. And then looking at the language services we provide, we have our own link that we provide for our families. And so far this year, 18 non-English language requested from our families, which is tremendous. And so moving forward, as we're engaging our families to celebrate student learning, we will continue to have that integrated approach with collaborating with departments collectively to develop our plans and provide these workshops and opportunities for learning with our families. We will also make sure our families understood and know how to help their child. So we're doing it with our families and really providing them with workshops and trainings that they are seeking. And then we have that empathy listening tours that we will implement. And it's still what we have seen from data. What's working? What needs to be changed? And that's going to help continue to guide our work, as well as ensuring that we have in those welcoming school environments. The things that we do for strengthening and cultivating those inclusive environments. We work with community organizations and help principals understand the communities maybe of different language with our refugee population. And so we just work one-on-one with the principal in the schools, or we can have, or we've also had sessions where the organizations inform the principals of what they offer to the families. And then having those learning experiences that really engage our families and enhance student achievement. So we have the dual capacity framework, capacity building framework. And the challenge you see here is there was a struggle between family engagement and family engagement. You know, the families have one perspective, educators had one perspective, they really wasn't exposed to like effective family engagement. So you can see the gap, the spreading. But then they tell you what are these essential conditions that needs to be put in place. Asset based, looking at what they're bringing, not looking at families from a deficit, oh, I'm going to save them, right? Looking at it from what they're bringing, linked to learning, but really building that relational trust. Then it goes into those policies and programs that needs to be put in place in order to have the capacity outcomes, which is families engaging, families seeing themselves as co-creators, as partners, being models, but really having that effective partnership to strengthen student achievement and school improvement. So this is one of our dynamic parents, Ms. Guillermina Rice. She's a parent leader from Hoover Cluster. We've worked with her over the years with family engagement, just seeing her develop, but we've collaborated side by side to plan agendas, to see how we can support parents and help parents build parents up. We've created many workshops and sessions, and so this is her voice of her experience. And then we can just click on the video. Thank you.
Hello, this is Guillermina Rice. I'm going to speak up about my community involvement and about my the progress that I've been having since I started a long time ago. The day that I started was when my son, Arrow, he started preschool. And then he needed some resources because he was having a little trouble retaining information. So I started being involved as a volunteer in his classroom. I started getting involved in every single thing that I was able to help my son in his classroom. And soon enough, I started getting involved in all these different activities in the school at Central Elementary. I started in 2008, I think. And by then, I thought that I was not even able to speak up in a camera, and I see that myself. Today, I'm speaking up. But has been a long time connecting with the right people, because has been a lot of people on my side holding my hand all the time and telling me all the time that I can do it. And today, in 2022, I can say that I am able to do agendas, to organize the parents, and I can be leading meetings. And my goal is that we will have a lot of leaders in our community, helping our schools, helping to create better education for our kids. So my goal is that I can be part of these parents who wants to be the voice of their kids, as like I thought many years ago that I'm the voice of my son. So I'm so excited, and I'm here to be helping in anything or any way that I can help. So we have a lot more leaders on our schools, and parents will be soon taking over me because I'm flying away like the eagles.
And well said. She narrated her process. We worked with her diligently with how can we get parents involved, and then even in the process, look at her capacity. So we are one, no matter our race, the language we speak, where we live, our education, financial status, or social status. We are unified, collective partners. Everyone's voice, opinions, and ideas, as well as their contributions on every level are valued. So we are a family working together for the success of our students, and I thank you sincerely for allowing me to share LCAP Goal 5 with you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yes. Thank you. We have no speakers, so let us, board members, Trustee Barrera.
Thank you, President Whitehurst-Payne, and thank you so much, Pam, for all the work that you're doing and for the presentation tonight. But I want to challenge us because I think the framework, the dual capacity building framework that you identify here is something that is transformational. Because, and this discussion about family engagement dates back many years, in this district. When we said that the definition of family engagement, parent engagement, can not just be limited to participation in school site councils, participation in PTAs, and governance structures of schools. Those are very important. But that's only ever going to involve a very small percentage of our families. And so what family engagement needs to mean is exactly what this slide talks about, which is to build the capacity of all of our families to support their students' education. And in order to do that, we have to build the capacity of all of our educators to see families as critical partners and to understand how to work with families. So the framework is transformational. What is difficult, I will just say as a board member, is we need to know, are we making progress in our district towards this framework? And in order for us to know that, we have to have metrics that are not just about the number of workshops or things that we do, which is always important, and this can't be something that is put on family engagement as being responsible for building the capacity of all of our educators and all of our parents. It has to, as it says right here, as an organizational condition, it has to be systematic and embraced by leadership across the organization. What I worry about is without metrics and without a comprehensive picture about, are we in fact building the capacity throughout our system among our families and our educators, what we're going to have is really what's probably existed in this district for many, many decades, which is a lot of good work done by a department that's called a parent engagement department or the Ballard Center or whatever we were calling it at that time. And we'll have people who go through terrific workshops, but it's such a small number, and it's such a small percentage of our families. And what we're trying to drive at is this concept of the dual capacity building framework is core to making our schools effective. So what I want to challenge us on is to come back to the board with a thoughtful sense of metrics that allow the board to know, are we in fact building capacity, in our district, and where's our progress there, and how are we measuring it, and how do we hold ourselves accountable to the vision that's laid out, in this presentation. It's incredible work, that the department is doing, but I think it leaves us as a board without an ability to really understand whether we're in fact making progress. And a concern, I will just say for me, that we're siloing parent education when we know that in order to build capacity at this level, this has to be integrated throughout all the work that we do.
Great point.
Right, before we get anyone else, I want to just drill down on that. I had made a note. You remember a workshop you did for the ministers in the community, and you talked about going into the homes at that time and doing a workshop for mothers. And I think you were alluding to that with now doing it for the families online, which is a good thing. But I think Richard's point is well taken. We were supposed to build we went out to Faith School, and we were saying we wanted that to multiply. And I feel like that Pam is doing an outstanding job. Ms. King is doing an outstanding job in her capacity, but it's kind of like a sideline for others. When instead of her being sidelined, somehow or another, it has to become the systems model, because Zach's point about students is the same about families. In a discussion we had earlier, we don't need the school to just do and then tell the community. We need the community, the families involved in the process, and that's the whole point about the community schools. We've got to make that connection, and I do say that you're doing an outstanding job of connecting with the community, but somehow or another, everybody needs to be a Pam. Everybody needs to be a Ms. King doing the same kind of connection. If you're a teacher and you have students, you need to be developing a Ms. Guillermina. Everybody needs to be developing every parent to be her, to work with their own children so that they take that ownership. So I don't know how you get from this whole discussion that we're having about that to engaging the entire system rather than having her, she's doing a Herculean task, but we've got to get everybody doing that.
Can you give some background on Candace you mentioned in a previous one? You mentioned, was the person before you that did work in family?
No, I was saying that you talked about the part where you did a workshop for the ministers talking about the fact that when a child wasn't reading well, they would actually go to the homes and work with the mother, and the other children would be running around. But now it sounds like instead of just working with the mother, if there's a father or an aunt or an uncle or other kids, everybody's involved in that workshop to learn how to support that student, which is the way it should be, rather than, because it's a community event. I look at my great nephew, the other one, and his sister, and she's helping to teach him as a second grader. He's in kindergarten, but she's asking him now, 20 plus 5 is how much? How much money did Aunt Sharon give you? So that sort of thing, they're doing that as a unit, not just as a teacher trying to only teach or a mother only teaching, but the entire family embracing the learning for each child in that home. I'm not sure if I answered your question. Okay. Others, anybody else, but yes.
Yeah, thank you. I also wanted to give Pam a shout out because whenever I'm at a community event, I was at the PTA council, on Zoom last night, we had a PTA council meeting. She was on there with me. She was at the Claremont Family Days. She's been on the Mira Mesa cluster meetings working with us in a workshop setting, and so she's fantastic at helping out with the community. And I feel like this is one of the core LCAP goals that I'm really all about, because that's really where I came from. I grew up into this position from being a parent volunteer. That's where I started. I know it seems small, but as a parent volunteer, you can get parents, even if it's one at a time, you just have to meet them where they are. Not every parent is, I knew that, not every parent's going to be able to come to a PTA meeting, but some parents are comfortable on a computer. So if you get a parent helping, with a newsletter or going on a field trip, and gradually you kind of build that network. So it starts small, but you can really include, having different clubs. We had a dad's club. And this is a very diverse school in Mira Mesa. And we got some of the dads involved and had like an astronomy night, things like that. And again, they seem small, but all those things come together. And, I built a lot of lifelong friendships for my kids at elementary school level at a school that was just extremely diverse. And, I think we can do that, but we do have to meet people where they're at and find ways that they're interested in being involved, because by doing that, the students see that, and it really helps with their success. I mean, the students knowing that I wasn't there just for my child, I was there for all the kids at that school, and all of my friends were. If we saw a kid in trouble, we were there to help. So it's just that engagement outside of just the students and staff, having that, I think it just, helps to lift those kids up. They know that they have that extra, those people to fall back on. So the more we can do that, the better, and building that across the district. But I think we can do it. It only takes one really super engaged parent at a school to help start that the process, and you get one more, and then pretty soon you have parents involved.
And I always think about it as, it's like when they asked me how many lunches did I want when I would drive up that week that we started serving lunches, and how many do you want, 2 or 3? I'd look at them and say, I wanted 100,000 at that time. And right now, Pam has great numbers. She's at least thinking numerically and putting data down. But we have 96,000 kids. And I want that fire lit so that all of the kids have an advocate. Whoever it is. I mean, I don't care. Maybe the police officer, whoever. Just an advocate.
That person.
Zach.
Yeah, thank you. I empathize. I mean, I love how we have a department for this, right? We can have these conversations. It's my hope that we can get there for students as well, and we'll see if time can get us there. But what I wanted to ask about specifically, I was looking at the point of the family empathy listening tours. One of the things that I think about is, so your department is engagement. But then we also have, in these engagement sessions, naturally we have conversation coming up on what needs to be changed, what we want to hear from. And one of the things that I think can be difficult is bridging that gap, right? Get you being there, hearing that, but then actually having a pipeline directly to leadership to change that. And I wanted to understand where that comes in, and especially if this is something that we're moving forward on, what role district leadership would be playing with your department to ensure that those concerns are really heard beyond holding a forum that doesn't go anywhere.
Well, first, I want to thank you for the challenge, and thank you for all the feedback in regards to the dual capacity framework. And you're definitely right. It's building capacity system-wide among everyone, right? And so anyone can live and do that work. We are, if I may, can I address what we are? Because looking at that, we knew that was one of the areas, and that's why we want to implement this. This is based on research from Dr. Karen Mapp, who is the guru of family engagement, a Harvard professor, as well as the Department of Education. This is in alignment with them. And it's clearly states for that purpose. And so we were hoping that we could implement that, and thus far, have given those powerful partnerships aligned to this dual-based capacity framework with vice principals. And then currently I'm actually using this model to do a design thinking with Mira Mesa to pilot, to have some data that can be replicated. But system-wide, you're definitely right. Thank you so very much. And Zachary, with the empathy listening tours, we're going to do, it hasn't been implemented yet, right? We're doing that with a pilot with Logan Memorial Educational Complex, with LAMAC. And so with that information of seeing what's working well, what's the needs of the families, it gets directly to leadership because we have that point of contact. Like, I look at family engagement being like excuse the language, but kind of like just being on the field, we're like hands on the ground. Families know they could come to us and they can have that immediate, it could be a phone call because we have our Google phones. So they could be a phone call, they could do email, we have all of that. And we just give our leadership the concerns, give them that feedback, give them what's present with the families so that leadership knows right away we can have that immediate resolve and see how we can better support. That's what we currently do now, but it's not label listening tours, right? The phone calls. We're constantly using that, or even when we have our chats, or even when we have check-in on families and we have our community groups, we're constantly listening to their concerns. We'll take it back to the prospective district leader, and then based on that, you'll see that adjustments or communication comes out because families are concerned about this. Families are, and so we have it, give the information to the direct leader who is responsible for ensuring that parents are provided with whatever that need is, that they're making sure that they address their concerns. So it's not the listening tour, but I just think the data that we've done and the relationships that we've had with families thus far, hearing them, taking the information to leadership, whether it's mental health, whether it's with different mandates and things of that sort, but just getting it right in the, on the scope of our leaders. So it's that connection. We communicate and make those connections daily once we receive from families.
Yes, Trustee.
I want to thank you for your work. And the metrics that you do have contained in the presentation, I think, are very positive. There's other metrics that aren't in the presentation that we're all aware of, and that was brought up by Trustee Bozzo, was the PTAs. Right, you participate in the PTAs. You're a part of the district where we're in partnership with the PTAs and the foundations and things like that. And that was a metric that that I would have liked to have seen. Is what schools and how many schools have PTAs, because we know that the more PTAs we have, then the more parent engagement programs are going on at each specific site. And so I think that might be helpful, because if some schools have had PTAs for 15 years, but because of COVID or who knows what happened, the school no longer has a PTA, what can we do to help support the parents and the teachers to create the PTA at a school, and also in partnership, obviously, with the San Diego Unified District Council of PTAs.
Well, the SSC, some schools don't have PTAs because they have the SSCs, and they want...
Or foundations,
yeah.
Right. But still, those foundations do act in a parent organizing capacity, because a lot of schools that have foundations in lieu of a PTA, they still have lots of very involved parents that are engaged in the school in allocation of resources that they raise and how it has a positive impact on their school for their children, and a variety of other things that are measurable. And that would look great at the end of the year recap on parent engagement for LCAP 5. But thank you very much for you and your team, and for all the educators in the schools. I know we have a lot of administrators and educators and teachers in the schools today that are doing home visits and have been doing them for many, many years. And I know that's not an easy thing to do, and I want to thank them for that too. Thank you.
And the reason I mention SSCs, because a lot of our schools, yes, San Diego High has a foundation, but a lot of our schools don't have them in the southern and central part of the city, and even with Kearney and schools like that don't have the foundations, but they do have SSCs, and those involve some parents. But I'm very proud of the fact that, as you said, when you go out, we see you, and we know that you're there connecting with the community. You're doing workshops, you're engaging with the various languages and so forth, with the presentations that you do. And I just don't want you to be sidelined. I just want a new assignment for the superintendent with this goal is to do what we need to have ramped up so that we can get some outcomes so that every school is engaged, that every school and it could partner with that SSC goal that we had. Remember, we wanted an active representative from every school on the CAC? No? The DAC, yes. Just reading my eyes here. I need to see that we're getting from the schools, parents working and then moving up to that next level, and even at the elementary level, where they're involved with their own children and can then serve to advocate for the school. So I just want us to help push it along there.
I made note and appreciate. We are addressing some, and workshops are good for some.
Right.
But we are not addressing all, and we'll get there.
Right. Okay. Yes.
One other point, just I'm passionate about this issue. I think in listening to everyone, I think parent involvement is important at all levels, but especially at the elementary school, because just in my experience, a lot of parents, you're going to have kids in the school all the way up through high school. If you can get them in those early years of elementary school involved, it increases the communication. They're talking to the principal more because they're engaged, and if they're more involved with the school, we're less likely that we're going to lose them to a charter school or other if they're going to their community schools. Things like that. So I think getting parents involved in some way, early, it doesn't have to be that they're coming to a PTA meeting, like I said, every week, but getting them involved early, they will be dedicated. I've seen it. If you can get them in there, then they will all the way through till high school. They will be dedicated, and they will maintain, and their kids will stay in that cluster all the way through. So I think it's important to really engage them as early as possible too.
Thank you, Dr. Mike. Trustee Mike.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I also want to thank Pamela King and the Family Engagement Department for the work that you're doing and the data that you're gathering that helps to determine what's working and what needs to be changed. I also want to acknowledge the fact that you are out there, and I can want to highlight one program that you've been involved with, and that's the gathering of our shoes for our Maasai students in Kenya, and the work that you did to provide a great welcome and a celebration of the Minister of Tourism and Wildlife when he came here to San Diego, and we held a great reception at Point Loma. In addition, I want to lift up what Trustee Barrow was pointing out, and it's the importance of providing both quantitative and qualitative data, especially when we're measuring capacity. It is the stories that are being told, and I think it was by Ms. Rice telling her story, says a whole lot about the differences that we were making now and the improvements that we were making towards developing a greater capacity for parent engagement. And I want to thank you for articulating so well the importance of this work, of developing powerful partnerships by moving our family partners from connecting to building capacity to meaningful engaging as educational partners in the work. The data is showing a positive impact, and it does indicate that our family engagement effort is working, as well as showing us what we need to do in order to improve. So thank you, Ms. King.
Thank you. And if there are no other comments, then we want to thank you, and we look forward to the superintendent working with you and staff to figure out how we can multiply this exponentially. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate all your feedback and your support.
Thank you. Let us move on now. I'd like a motion for items F1 through F3.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms.
I think I'd like to move item E3, the A through G completion improvement grant.
I'm sorry, I just skipped right over E3. Just a second.
Oh, that's a first reading,
I'm
sorry.
down here at board consent agenda and moving right along. A to G completion improvement grant. Who is doing that? This is on the info first reading.
Yeah, no presentation, it's just
board.
Info.
I believe the A through G completion improvement grant is $12 million to help our kids graduate from high school.
Yes, so last board meeting, we had a presentation. We shared that. Part of the grant is that we bring forward the plan and the budget alignment, which you have. And so we're asking that this is a first reading, and we'll be bringing back a second read.
Okay. I don't think anybody saw the budget. It's 12 million, about $1 million for a workshop, and on and on and on. Yes, okay. So we just acknowledge it, and we move on, and we were going to give you 10 minutes to talk about it, so it's over. All right, thank you. Moving right along, the next time we'll approve it, if you bring it back, okay? So board consent agenda. Let us get, Beiser had already.
So moved.
Yes, and the second is by?
Oh, second?
Second is by Bazo. Let's see, any requests for public testimony? I don't see any. Anybody else? No. No speakers. Anybody wants to discuss it? Otherwise, let us vote, and we'll go first.
Aye.
Student, aye. Okay. And Dr. McQuarrie?
Aye.
Okay, and everybody else gets to vote on their trustee. Okay, so that's unanimous. Okay, and the student concurs. Now we've moved on. Good? Did I skip anything else? Okay, we're on G1, ratification. I need a motion on this one.
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Beiser. Second is by? Okay, thank you, Barrera. No discussion on it, then let's vote. You get to vote on this one? No? No, then let's see, you're not listed, so you don't get to vote this time. Maybe in the future. Dr. McQuarrie?
Aye.
Okay, so that passes unanimously. G2, let's do the ratification of the agreements. Let's see, a motion again?
I'll move G2.
Thank you.
Second.
Trustee Beiser, second by Bazo. And you don't get to vote this time either. So Dr. McQuarrie?
Aye.
Okay, everybody else push a little button. Okay, so that passes also unanimously. And we're on G3. Wow.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Beiser, a second by? Nobody wants a second?
McQuarrie, I'll go for it.
Oh, McQuarrie. Okay. Any discussion on this? If not, then let's see. Do you get to vote on this one? Let's see if he gets to vote. You get to talk. It says you vote, but let's see. Maybe that's not right. It says on here that you vote. But you wanted to talk before we vote.
No, I just wanted to say aye and congratulations.
So does he vote or not? Yes? Okay, so you do get to vote. Aye? Yes, okay. Dr. McQuarrie?
Aye.
Aye. Everybody else, push a button. And that passes unanimously with, you got a unanimous vote with the student concurring. Very good. Thank you. And G4, the ICOC on racial justice and equity, an update to the board. And we will now have Jordan Harrison and Leah Nipomusino, who are the co-chairs, to provide a report.
Good evening, Superintendent Jackson, members of the board, and to the community members viewing this meeting. My name is Leah Nepomuceno, and I am the co-chair of the Independent Citizens Oversight Committee on Racial Justice and Equity. Joined with me is Acacia Thede. This evening, we will present the committee's first update to the board. We'd like to recognize the work of our fellow committee members. As you know, the Independent Citizens Oversight Committee on Racial Justice and Equity holds the San Diego Unified School District accountable to the public on whether we are making progress in the following areas outlined on this slide. Is the slide currently sharing?
1 second, Leah, we'll be right there.
Perfect.
You're doing a great job. Thank you for the intro.
Yeah, okay, great. Move it along.
Okay, you're all set. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you. So the progress in the following areas should be outlined on this slide. So for the 2022 calendar year, the ICOC will review data presented by staff and student focus groups during regular meetings. The committee will then present to the board on the schedule identified in this slide. For the 2022 year, the ICOC will be amplifying student voice through engaging students in our dialogue. During our regularly scheduled meetings, we will create space for students to share their experiences related to the 5 areas of focus. I will now pass it off to Acacia Thede.
Thank you, Leah. So next we had, you'll notice that I'm not Jordan Harrison. So he was unable to make it tonight. So Leah and I presenting on behalf of the committee. So what we'd like to share with you is we're going to share with you our first student focus group feedback and how it went with our students. So we're very excited to share this information this evening. So we had the pleasure of visiting Hoover Social Justice Academy. Our diversity and inclusion officer, Kimberly Moore, visited Sharon Apple's classroom at this high school to ask students, and you see their picture up there, to ask students to share their experiences related to restorative justice practices and mental health. 146 students from the Social Justice Academy were also invited to participate in a survey and the focus group. The next slide will show the survey data and the highlights and trends in the survey responses. Students were asked the questions that you see here on the slide, and you'll see that there were 2 areas of broad focus area that we asked children, excuse me, students, not children, those are my kids, that we asked students to see how things are going in their day-to-day and their lived experiences. What you see here on the next slide is some of the trends. These are not all the answers, but what you'll notice here is there is a variation of trends in what students are seeing and experiencing. The next slide is the second question, and in this slide, you'll see the same thing. We have a variation of experiences for our students as we are implementing in this first wave. Next, we talked to students about mental health supports and services. Again, we asked our students broad questions to determine how they were experiencing these supports on their campus. So you'll see here that we've got a similar trend in responses. We have students who have seen various levels of support and access. Second question, a very similar trend, where students have different experiences with the access and information. And then finally what we did was we asked students overall, what other feedback would you like to give the Independent Citizens Oversight Committee to make your school more anti-bias, anti-racist, and restorative? And what we have for you on this slide is another set of trends and responses. And as a staff member that supports the ICOC, the committee was very appreciative of the student voice in this manner. It was very clear data and clear information directly from students and their experiences. So so I'm going to turn it back over to Leah, and she is going to share with you all the update from the ICOC. And as Leah said earlier, the format that we're using this year is to give some incremental implementation updates before the ICOC gives their annual report in December. So Leah, I'll let you take it away.
So based on the student survey and focus group, I'd like to share our recommendations as we move forward in implementing restorative justice practices and mental health support. We recommend to continue funding restorative justice and mental health support for students. We recommend increasing student awareness and access to mental health support and services. Finally, we recommend mental health clinicians who are culturally responsive and who can understand the experience of diverse students and their families.
All right. That is the ICOC's report on where we have information for you today. So I'll turn it back over to Superintendent and Board President Whitehurst Payne.
Thank you. Thank you all for that presentation. It seems like the more we involve students in the process, the better our work is becoming. More real than just us hypothetically doing something up here. So anyway, that's just a sidebar. Now, who wants to talk? Trustee Barrera.
Yeah, just on that point, Acacia, maybe Julianne, we could give us a sense of the dynamic within the ICOC right now in terms of the relationship between students and adults.
Leah, do you want to speak to how you're feeling as a student participating on the committee? I think if that's all right. Okay. Go ahead, Leah. Go ahead and share your experiences.
Yeah, so I would say meetings at the ICOC are fairly collaborative between students and adults. We started inviting students from Hoover High School to take part of our meetings, and it's been great to see the very inclusive kind of environment between high schools and sharing our experiences. So for example, in our last meeting, when we had a focus on mental health, we had students explaining their own experiences with mental health at their high schools, and seeing kind of how that differed was also very interesting and helped us get a broader understanding of our goals and recommendations that we talked about today.
Thank you. Others? Trustee Patterson.
Good to see you again today. Thank you so much. Well, this is, sorry to the other staff, this is my favorite presentation of the day. I just love the raw student feedback that we have to drive and generate our work. And I really appreciate you bringing up mental health services and what that looks like. One of the things I would challenge us is, so now we have this here, we have what students said. That means that in 3 weeks, we will still know what they said. And in 6 weeks, we will still know this is in writing, this is right here. And it means that when we ask ourselves, where do we fall short in the future, we can reference back to these and we can say, this is what we asked for as students, and this is what we're looking to see. And I specifically, in some of the ones that I was looking at earlier, I think it's interesting, I've heard that there's a program called Mending Matters on campus, but I'm not sure where it is or how to access it. What does that tell me? It tells me that the infrastructure's there, and that's huge progress. And what it says is what our next step is, right? So it's there now. Now, how do we make sure people know about it? How do we make sure it's a resource, and how do we make sure that people feel like they can go to it? Is it far away? Is it distant? Or is it something that I feel I can step into directly? And Leah, let me know if I'm wrong. What was your sentiment in terms of kind of what I just said for students and their willingness to participate in these, or was there a disconnect?
I would say a lot of students that we talked to in our last meeting had the same concern of accessibility. Like a lot of us, we had these resources at our school, but we didn't even know that they were there. And kind of knowing that next step is really important to make sure that these are making an impact. These services are making the impact and the service that they're meant for.
Yeah, thank you for that. Clearly, yes.
I agree with Leah and with you, Trustee Patterson. As I spoke with Zoe and PETA, that was another concern, or that was the same concern that they had. They weren't aware of all of the things that were available, and so PETA recommended communication, making sure that when we are implementing initiatives from the district level, that sites also know and that sites can communicate with students. And so I made note there because, Leah, you make a very good point, and Trustee Patterson, you concur. So thank you for that feedback.
Well, just for our knowledge base, what does that mean to you, communicating to you? Does that mean just sending out an email, getting on messenger board? What does it mean? Does it mean ASB students talking about? I mean, we use that term for everything, communication, but what are we really talking about?
Leah, I think she's asking you. I could certainly.
I'm looking at you.
I can.
Like she can see me.
Like she can see you. I can answer that, but I'm gonna
I want to
turn
hear
it over
from the student. I'm sorry. I just want to hear from Leah. I'm talking to you. Okay.
Okay, perfect. So something that a lot of students brought up in our last meeting was in order to make that connection, it really ranges from school to school. So for example, I go to Scripps Ranch High School, and something that I brought up was that students tend to get their news off student announcements. However, for a school like Hoover, it might be directly through a teacher or through a class. So I would say we first have to communicate with schools and ask them, or specifically students, and ask them how they get their news. And then from there, we can decide how we have that next step of communication with services.
So this is not something that the district can do. Hello, principals. Hello, schools. We're talking to schools now. When you say communication, we're not talking about superintendent gets the message out. This is something that your principal and every principal at a school site has to assume that responsibility to get the message out to your population, wherever they are. I mean, it could be a half dozen students, but if each one of them communicates through a different message in order to get them. I remember once I had a group of 6 people. I had to text one, I had to email another, I had to go on Facebook for another one. I mean, it was like, but that's the only way they were going to get the message because they didn't cross channels. So,
President Whitehurst-Payne, one of the things that our students said to us in the committee was they also wanted us as a system, all of us together, wherever we're at, kids, adults, to really think through restorative practices and mental health in particular without a stigma. And so a couple of students shared concepts such as, I would love to be able to, in just my normal class, be able to have conversations within circles or without, but to have places and spaces where there's no stigma about talking about these resources and this support. And so as an adult, as a staff member observer, I thought that was an incredibly simple thing that is achievable by anyone in our system. And so, Leah, I just remember we talked about that. That was the thing that really struck me just as an individual observing and supporting the committee. So
that's excellent. Any of us can listen to somebody in a group and sit and listen, whoever it is. Very good point. Thank you. Yes, Trustee Patterson.
Yeah, and you mentioned, this is the role of principals and site staff, more so than making a statement right now. How do we walk out of this meeting and make sure that happens? And that's something that I think we're onto something here. And I think that we've always been onto it. It's just a matter of how do we actually make sure that happens? How do we get these? How are we actually surveying students to see what is that best resource, right? Leah, you just talked about it varies by school, and it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And sometimes that's challenging right at a district level because naturally we have to choose something, but maybe it doesn't make sense at the site level. But what I'm trying to get at is I want to be sure that we do something to make sure that that actually happens, and I don't want to walk away where these comments go into the air, if that makes sense.
I made connection here with our Chief of Staff, Dr. Roditi, as we were shaking our heads, and I agree. I think it's important for us to work with our area superintendents who work with our principals so that school site principals and leaders at school sites can set up surveys to ask their students, because we're all saying the same thing. Where Leah can work with Principal Lawson and say, this is how I think it would be helpful for me to receive information, and really hear the students and design communication that works for their school site. And I think that would be a good next step to talk about when we think about safe, inclusive environments. Marzano's level 1 is, how are we communicating with our students? How are they making sure they're getting the resources? One of the things that was introduced was a student website where they can go and get resources, where they don't have to search the district website or a whole school website. They can go right to a student website. For some communities, it depends on how the students want to get the information. And as you often say, we are the customer. So if you want to serve the customer well, you have to ask the customer. And I think that was the question you asked, and I accepted it. You asked Leah. I'm talking to you, not the superintendent. And I thought that was appropriate because she needs the information. And it's not good enough for us to just send out the information. We often talk about that with educators. It's not good enough for me to say, I taught the lesson.
Right.
The question is, what did they learn?
Right. That's my saying.
I see you. Thank you, Dr. Whitehurst. Trustee Patterson, so I think that's a good next step. And that's one of the things we can think about is, what goals do we have? And then how do we report out on that? Thank you.
Yes.
Building on what Dr. Jackson just said, and this came from another, I think it was a California School Board Association meeting. I think it would be helpful to have an app for students that they could, it's more easily updatable, if that's a word, but that students can just log in. What are those mental health resources? Having all that information on their phones, even more so than a website, I think is getting to that age group more effectively. So, I really like the idea, and I've talked to Dr. Jackson about this, but having apps, maybe, one app, several different apps for, student, one for parents, but I think that would be a really great way to reach out to our community with information that can be updated very quickly and can be direct to a specific group, in this case, the students.
And that's an excellent suggestion, and we're not going to micromanage you. But you brought me back when you said that. I always said to them in the intern program years ago, you haven't taught until students have learned. That was my motto. Oh, you're taking me back.
I'll second the app.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, and the app should also include a bullying reporting form.
Yeah. Want to see outcomes. They want a motion on this. You want to make a motion on that, I guess. All in favor of an app? No?
Yes.
We're going to give it to them. Yes. Yes. They're adding an informational vote here. Okay, guys, let's come back together. We're now on, thank you for that presentation, Dr. Theda, and thank you, Leah. We look forward to seeing you guys again, okay?
Quick question, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Could we actually move consideration of that app to come back to look at the feasibility of something like that? I'd be interested to see if that would be, I'd ask that we consider looking at the feasibility of it at least.
This is information, however, I have pound apps Hashtag apps.
There we go. My generation.
Yes.
For students.
Talking
yeah.
both generations for students. I listed that.
Perfect.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Whoever's watching.
You guys, I must say, you all are glad to be back because we're really loose today. Yes, it is fun. And now we'll move to, I'm not skipping over this time, right? To G, we just did G4. So we're now on 5. And we do an action item here, which I'd like a motion for.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Beiser. And who's seconding that?
I'll second item G4.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson, Trustee Patterson. If no comments, let's vote. Patterson first.
Aye.
And McQuarrie?
Aye.
And everybody else, push a button. And that passes unanimously with the student concurring.
I just want to thank all the people that we've just reappointed to this committee. It's a lot of work. It's not paid, and it's giving them giving us valuable input on how we can make sure that the taxpayer-approved bond money is spent to help all facilities and all students, especially the ones that happen to be in these charter schools. Thank you.
And just thanks to all the folks who are helping. That's why we were talking earlier to Mrs. King about that. And everybody's contributing. It should be. Everybody's making some contribution. And that was on, now we're moving to H1. Another. Thank you, Barrera.
Second.
Trustee Barrera and Beiser. Any discussion on this? Ms. Rega is available. Not, then let's see if we get student this time. Yes.
Aye.
Aye. And McQuarrie?
Aye.
And everybody else? And again, that passes unanimously with the student concurring. And we're on the superintendent's consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee.
President Whitehurst-Payne, you have one small correction on the consent agenda. Just want to make sure you're aware.
One that's been withdrawn, I-30.
I-30 has been withdrawn, and item I-29, one of the attachments has been withdrawn, so that there are only 2 job descriptions being brought forward tonight for board approval.
Okay.
I'll move as amended.
Thank you. And the second one on this was what? Who? Richard. Left, right, okay. Trustee Barrera. And there's no discussion, no comments from the community. Let us vote first with our student.
I vote aye with an abstention on I-10 or on I-10 and 11, student expulsions and student readmits.
Thank you. And then Dr. McQuarrie.
Aye.
And everybody else? Okay, we have all the buttons pushed. That means that passes unanimously again with the student concurring. And that moves us to the end of our scheduled agenda. We're now at the non-agenda public testimony, and we have 4 speakers. Margarita Machado Casas, said earlier. Luann, no, not here, okay. Luann Volk and Rachel Neifer, yes. Please speak you have 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself wherever you are.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say that this school board is awful. Not allowing in-person meetings and continuing the mask and vaccine mandate charade. All the facts and input the parents provide in past meetings fell on deaf ears, and you even hang up on most of the parents that try to speak in opposition of your mandates. Despite everything, all of you continue to push through your own agenda. At about 95,000 students, San Diego Unified has 4,000 fewer students this year than it projected, and that number will continue to decline. Do you know why? Not because of fears of COVID exposure. It's because the school district and the California government are failing and hurting our children with unnecessary mask and vaccine mandates. The truth is, parents are pushing back and pulling their kids out for greener pastures. If all of you don't stop this stupidity, I will be pulling my kids out as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And B. Ray, all right, available? Yes. You have 3 minutes. Unmute yourself, please. Persons, please unmute yourself. B, and then RAI. Please unmute yourself. We see you on the screen. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. We will move on. I'd like to thank you all for this meeting tonight. Thank you all for coming. It's good. And I would like to say this concludes the agendized business of the board. The next regular meeting will be held on Tuesday, April 12th, 2022 at 5 p.m. And as we're segueing to close out, one of our trustees wants to make a request, and we will yield to him.
Thank you, President Dr. Whitehurst Payne. I would just like to close the meeting with a moment of silence in memory of all of the innocent people that have been killed in Ukraine over the last several weeks. If you please join us in a moment of silence.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are adjourned.